Okay, so today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a pinch pot and how to get started with that. So the first thing you're going to want to do is kind of judge the amount of clay that you need to make the size pinch pot that you are desiring. So I'm going to be using, this is about a pound of clay, and this is a pinch pot I made recently that is about a pound of clay. So you can see the size gets a little bit bigger. It's not a crazy amount bigger, but I still do need to stretch this out a tiny bit more. So the first thing I want to talk about is wedging again. So you're going to be pushing. It's kind of like you're pushing, pulling, and rolling. So I'm kind of squeezing in with my outside hands, rolling it and pulling it back. Okay, rolling it and pulling it back until, you know, it's solid. This takes a lot of practice, I keep telling you that. When you are doing it correctly, and I would typically use two hands, but it's kind of hard to do this on the cart. Typically use two hands because this is small, I'm able to do it. And I'm kind of doing a spiral wedge where you can see I'm starting to get this spiral. Okay, once you have wedged it for, you know, let's say a couple minutes or 3 minutes, you can also hit it, and I'm just going to hit it on a table over here so I don't shake that too much. So you see I can hit this, I kind of smashed it together. Now I'm going to be hitting it into my hand. The reason I'm doing this, and you can see I'm cupping around it using the palm of my hand and my fingers to kind of grip it. You are wanting to get a ball. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a perfect ball, but it is nice to start with a good, you know, ball shape. So that's what I have. You are going to be taking your thumb and just pushing right into the center. Okay, obviously you don't want to go through the bottom, and then you want to be able to fit your thumb in there and your fingers on the outside. And it's called a pinch pot, but you're not pinching to hurt. You're using the whole pads of your fingers and the whole pads of your thumb, and I'm applying most of my pressure right now down here at the base. Okay, and I'm slowly wrapping it around. So I'm turning it as I'm pinching. Okay, as that starts to thin out, I'm going to move my hands up. Okay, so now I'm kind of in the middle section. And you can see what it's starting to look like on the inside. I'm going to keep pinching here. You can see it's getting larger. So as it's thinning out, I'm just going to keep kind of moving my way up. What I am desiring is that the clay is the same thickness everywhere. Okay, so you can see I was kind of going like that. That's stretching the clay open. It's kind of getting rid of these lumps and bumps. And at the same time as I do that, it's evening out the surface. Okay, so all I'm doing is kind of pulling with my hand, and this hand out here, or these fingers out here, are supporting it. Okay, you will also notice that I didn't really pinch too hard up here. Okay, it's very important that this edge does not get super thin. If you notice there are some like cracks on the surface, it's very easy to like clean up. Those are surface cracks. If your clay is dry, or you didn't wedge it right, you might get some larger cracks in here. Okay, you also notice that I held this in my hand the entire time. The reason why I didn't do it on here is because I didn't want to have a flat bottom on this. So what you are desiring is that the clay thickness is even as possible, so keep working on it. The smoother you get it, makes it just stronger, and again, it makes it more even and consistent. So I'm kind of like pinching and smoothing at the same time. But if you hold your finger up to the walls, it should be about the thickness of your finger, okay? You will notice mine is a pretty even height, okay? That is kind of what you are desiring. I know with beginning that can be challenging. So if it is like this side is really tall and this side is really low, you can just take your clay knife and shave some of that down. Another thing is if your clay is really thin up here, if you hold your 2 fingers on the side just like this and press down, that's really going to give you a nice strong ledge and smooth out the top surface. Not that you need it to be super smooth, but it needs to be strong, okay? So I have this as a good thickness. Once I have my pinch pot, then I can start making my next one. Something I want to go over though is you need to think about your overall shape that you are trying to create. Okay, so if you're creating something that looks very rounded and spherical, for this one, I would just create 2 pinch pots that are very round, just like this, a half sphere. If I were trying to make a pinch pot, this is made out of 2 pinch pots, that was a different kind of shape. Okay, so it's more narrow here and more rounded back here. Maybe the back part is definitely one of these shapes, but the front part is more of a oval or kind of cone-like shape. So you can do that very easily by putting your hand in the very bottom and pushing up, and then I'm going to just use my hand ever so slightly to kind of squeeze and go around. You can see that has already started to give me a little bit better of a shape that I desire. Okay, so I'm going to keep going, and you can see that it's getting closer and closer and more pointed. Okay. When you are making your piece, you also want these to fit together. This does not quite fit very well. So I have 2 options. I can try to stretch this one open a bit more, or I can kind of choke this one. So putting my fingers or hands around it and just kind of squeezing in a little bit. And I can do a little bit of both. Okay, so that's a lot closer of a fit. I'm not going to go over that process quite yet, but that's kind of how you get there. Another thing you can think about is if you want your piece to be more geometric or have flat sides or hard edges, you can use a paddle to do that. And let me grab one real quick. So this is a paddle. It's very easy to use. When your clay is soft, sometimes it can be challenging. You just want to give light taps. Okay, so let's say I did want this to be actually like a cone, so more rigid sides. So you can see this one is very rounded, this one is more angled. Okay, so I could, holding my hand on the inside for support, that's very important, and then going around the outside edge and paddling that. Okay, so that should get you started. Based on your design, you really need to problem solve and think about how you're going to make your pinch pot for your specific design. Thank you so much.